Have you begun your transition out of the military? And have you ever wondered, how am I going to start a new life and a new career? Well, I'm Dave. I'm a 15-year veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces, and I'm going to share with you the 5 books that helped me the most get my transition on track. Over the years, I read a lot of books, and I'm going to go over the 5 that I think had the biggest impact on my life through my transition. And let me be clear, my military transition. I don't want there to be any ambiguity in this video, if you know what I'm saying. I had a rough time leaving the Army. I went to war, got a job, then cried in the basement, in that order. I used to be a miserable sack of shit. Well, maybe somebody would argue I still am. So stay tuned to the end because I'm going to share with you a sneak peek of my new book that I'm creating and a part of it that helps you sort out your life if you need help getting back on track. But before we do, why don't you hit the like button and support this channel and help me get a little bit of encouragement as I struggle through these YouTube videos. All right, so here we go. This is the list of my 5 favorite books that helped me through my transition process. We've got the list right over here. Let's get into book number 1, which is the 4-Hour Workweek. All right, so the 4-Hour Workweek, what are we looking at here? All right, so the 4-Hour Workweek was probably one of the first books that I actually stumbled upon, and how I stumbled upon it, I'm not quite sure. The point of this book was really to help me with my self-improvement and growth. And the point here was to really get a framework as to how to do it. I'd heard about it before. I wasn't quite sure what it was. I actually got the audiobook, and I think it was actually from a Joe Rogan episode that I got peeked to it because I didn't know anything about self-improvement. My idea about self-help, self-improvement was 100% determined by The Simpsons and Troy McClure.
Hello, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such movies as Cry Yuma and Here Comes the Coast Guard.
Remember that guy? Right, so for me, self-help and actually going about trying to self-improve was seen as below me, something that only suckers do, because that was the limiting belief that I had imprinted on myself from growing up. Man, my family doesn't do self-improvement. I'm Anglo-Irish. We don't do any of that shit. We just suck it up and carry on. Who are you to get better, right? So tackling this book was a big leap for me. And I used to listen to it on the way to a job, which was teaching high school, that I really didn't enjoy. And the funny thing was, this was my dream teaching job. I really, really wanted this job. And what it turned out to be was misery. I really didn't like it. Like, I couldn't get over the fact that I had great students, great staff, great work environment, and I was still miserable. Something was off. This book was my first step in tackling that and cracking this wide open as a topic for me. So Tim Ferriss is the author, and you can see it here. This book, it was actually written quite a few years ago. So we have to put things in context that a lot of the stuff in this book, when it comes to the tactics and the tech that he talks about, is completely outdated, but the philosophy and the idea still rings true. One of the main things that he uses is the DEAL framework. So the DEAL framework stands for define, eliminate, automate, and liberate. When we define what we want to do and what we want from life, you get to actually set your goalpost to aim at. I had never done this in my entire life. I just coasted. I didn't know what I was doing. I was almost 30 years. I was like 35 years old. I'd already had my son. I'd been to war. I'd started a career, but I was going through it aimlessly. This was one of the most important parts of the book. Next is eliminate. Go on a low information diet. And this couldn't be truer today because social media sucks your attention away. In his case, he's talking about not reading too much news. This is also very relevant. Don't go through your day consuming too much information. Stay focused on your goals and worry about that. Automate. So use the internet. I mean, this book was written before ChatGPT, but now we have ChatGPT, which is a freaking beast of a piece of software. Go use it and automate as much as you can in your life to save you time so that you can get to that 4-hour work week. And lastly, liberate. You don't want to be geographically stuck somewhere because of a job which pays you a salary. This is one of the key fundamental principles. You need to be able to provide some value to the market, get paid for it, but be able to do it anywhere you want. And this rings true for me. I have a skill, which is teaching, which I can take anywhere in the world. So I'm glad that I have that skill. Plus, I speak English and I can teach English, which is massive. If I go to any other country that doesn't speak English, they're always looking for English teachers. So I have that. But secondly, I created a business that is online. You're experiencing it right now. I could film these anywhere I want. I could also write my books and coach my clients from anywhere on the planet that has an internet connection. So this was a fundamental shift for me and why this book is number one on the list. Second on the list is The Supple Leopard by Dr. Kelly Starrett. So Dr. Kelly Starrett has been on my podcast twice. He was the reason why I was able to get out of bed and start walking properly again and participating in sports and hanging out with my kids the way I wanted to hang out with them, which was actively, due to his book, The Supple Leopard. So I have it here on the screen, but I also have a nice big bad copy here on my desk, and you'll typically see it behind me because it's that important a book. It's a textbook. It's big. And I zeroed in on the sections to help my back and my knee. And guess what? Once I started putting it into practice, I started actually getting better. So although I'm still in pain every day, I can still mitigate it a lot better because of the exercises I learned in this book. So if you're struggling with pain because of your service, which is likely yes, I really can't recommend this book enough. And all the books that I'm going over here, you can find them in the description. The Amazon link is there, just like you see here on the screen. And this book actually was the reason why I wrote my book, The Nimble Warrior. So that's this bad boy here, because I just took the main exercises that I found to be the most beneficial and distilled them down to an infantry-proof format, which is my book right here. And other folks have really found a lot of benefit from it. So if you want to get a copy of that, that's going to be in the description as well. His main thesis is that you are in charge of your pain management, not your doctor, not your therapist. It's up to you, because we've abdicated all of our ability to mitigate pain and take care of injury to a professional. But in reality, it's your responsibility and you are more than capable of figuring these things out. Now, the caveat is if something's squirting blood or you've got some weird goo coming out of you or you have a bone sticking out, well, obviously a medical professional is who you need to see. But everything else is pretty much 100% in your control, and this book allows you to do that. So definitely go check it out. All right, third on the list is Jordan Peterson's, or Dr. Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Again, this is a book that I listened to on that same walk to work every morning while I was teaching, and it had a profound effect on who I am as a man. One of the main things was that rule number 2, it says, take care of yourself with the same tenderness you would a loved one. Something about that hit home when I was listening to that. I got emotional because I knew I wasn't taking care of myself at that moment. And because I wasn't taking care of myself, I wasn't taking care of my family. And that made me feel like I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain. And I knew I needed to do better. I just had my son. I now have a daughter as well. And this book brought me along the path to becoming a better man. One of the quotes that I think is probably the best way to describe what his thesis is in this book is, to stand up straight with your shoulders back is to accept the terrible responsibility of life with eyes wide open. It means deciding to voluntarily transform the chaos of potential into the realities of habitable order. And this is the reason why 12 Rules for Life is number 3 on my list. All right, book number 4 is a very recent addition within the last few months, actually. The reason why this book was so powerful was that it gave me the framework from which I was operating from in black and white terms, and dispelled and got rid of all of the nonsense that I was holding on to since I was a kid, and put it into very simple terms to help me sort it out and take action. So the reason why this book is so important, especially if you're a man that is within the, elder millennial Gen X generation, is because Dr. Glover, who wrote this book, came up with what's called the nice guy syndrome. And let me explain a little bit more deeply. Dr. Glover's main thesis is that a large group of Gen X and elder millennial men are suffering from nice guy syndrome. Nice guy syndrome can be summarized as a behavior pattern where an individual seeks approval and validation by being extremely nice and accommodating to others, even at their own expense. The idea behind this behavior is that by being nice to everyone, they will receive the same kindness in return. So ultimately, this type of behavior leads to miscommunication and what he calls unspoken contracts. These unspoken contracts are between you and maybe your spouse. In my case, it was between me and my wife. My needs weren't being realized because I wasn't saying them out loud. And why is this important for the veteran population? Let me explain. I grew up in a household that my needs just weren't important. It's just the way we grew up. We didn't talk about them. I found a job in the military that 100% doesn't give a shit about your needs. The mission comes first. Well, I felt comfortable there because I never had my needs really met. So therefore, professionally, now I don't have to worry about my needs either. Cool. But that doesn't allow you to grow as a human being because you're suppressing all of these needs and becoming resentful because of it, because you're a human being. You can't just ignore them the rest of your life without having an effect on your soul. Once I realized this, it just cracked open a whole bunch of issues that I knew I needed to address. And ultimately, I was able to repair my relationship with my wife because I was able to accept the fact that I just wasn't able to communicate things, even though I thought I was, because I'd been held back for years because I didn't even realize that this was a thing that I had to sort out. So nice guy syndrome, I think, is something that especially Canadian men need to get a hold of and get a grip of. So if you want to get a hold of this book, you're definitely going to have to go in the description and grab a copy and get into No More Mr. Nice Guy. And lastly, Jocko with extreme ownership. I'm going to assume that you've likely heard of Jocko. Maybe you haven't read any of his books, but in this case, this is a highly recommended book for literally anybody. So you don't have to be in the military to appreciate his message here. But the goal of his book is to ensure that you understand that you need to own your shit, whether it's professional, personal, doesn't matter. So this really helped me get over the fact that, like I said earlier, I was shitting all over myself. VAC should be doing XYZ. The Canadian population should be doing XYZ for me. No. Take ownership. There's nobody coming to save you. And Jocko lays it out really eloquently and in typical Navy SEAL fashion. What's cool about Jocko is that even before I read his book, I was listening to a mashup of his podcast and his motivational speeches as a way to get myself out of the pain cave, both physically and emotionally, by just putting in work in the morning and having that on loop. Because he's a scary motherfucker and he's super motivational. So Jocko's main idea, he has six things that he goes over in his book. First one is leading a team to success means taking responsibility for each and every one of its failures. Number 2 is to successfully execute your mission, understand its importance. Number 3, treat your allies as a support network, not as competition. Number 4, remain effective under pressure by setting clear priorities and acting upon them. Number 5, planning for success means comprehensively identifying and mitigating risks ahead of time. And number 6, instead of resenting interference by your superiors, make sure you're giving them the information they need. There we go. Hope you enjoyed the list of my 5 favorite books that helped me through my military transition. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a like. And if you want to see more content like this every week for military veterans just like yourself, you're definitely going to want to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell as well. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the end of the video. And as promised, I want to make sure that you get the special bonus. This special bonus is an excerpt of my new book, which is my 1-week harden up routine. If you need to get back on track with your fitness, health, and mindset, this is going to be a great way to do so. So if you want to get access to it, you're going to have to go to the description in the video, head to the link, drop your email and I'll send that off to you. Not only that, you'll also get updates of when the book is about to get released and special offers, and you'll get tips, tricks, and guidelines on how to actually stay fitter, healthier, and get harder to kill. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget, train hard, fight easy. See you on the next one. Peace.